Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage, the beautiful state of Maine, on a Tuesday, mid-September 2025, where I am continuing to work on the Clutch Turbo 400, the poor man's Lenco, they called them. Lenco being a clutchless transmission, planetary style, that you can shift wide open. And back in the day, this is as close as you could get. Took an automatic transmission, got rid of the torque converter, put a clutch up here. Interesting concept, antiquated concept, but we're going to put it back together anyway. And what happens to it after that, I'm not sure yet. So when I tore it apart, I said I was going to stop and figure out how. They did away with the cooler circuit, and the converter oil has to go somewhere. So they machined a groove, quite crudely actually, between this pocket, which is line pressure right off the pressure regulator. This passage here is marked converter. On this side, obviously the stator tube is removed because we don't need that anymore. The converter feed is plugged. The converter return, which would go to the cooler, is now vented into the case. They drilled a hole right there, so there's no oil getting in. If any lube oil or whatever ends up in this circuit, it's just going to dribble back into the case. This converter oil that they charged up, this passage here, they intersected a hole into the cooler return, which is this passage. And now you have line pressure feeding the cooler return, which is the lube circuit for the transmission. So these are permanent mods. It will never have a cooler, I guess, under my watch. Not saying it can't be done. It would just take a lot of work. So probably why they did away with it in the first place. And my thoughts being, the converter makes most of the heat. The transmission itself, probably not. So with a temp gauge in the pan, you could determine if that's true or not, but that remains to be seen. Either way, today, now that we've figured that out, the pump itself is in beautiful shape. It's an old 121 casting. If you were to start interchanging parts, all these castings have part numbers and markings on them. In the ATSG manual, it tells you which ones are compatible with what, and also the pressure regulators, which ones will work in what body and cover. So we didn't change a thing. I didn't look up whether they go together. I'm going to assume they do because it was run like this. So I could stop and do it. Let me stop and do that because now I want. Okay, I'm just using the last 3 digits of the casting number. That's why I call the front a 121, and they kind of shortened it up and they put the last 3 digits as well. This is a 121 pump body. This is a 174 cover. According to this chart, that's a 174 pump cover with a 121 body. It says, yes, they are compatible, which is good to know. This is also where I was checking all my passages. Most of the time you'd breeze right by these sections of the manual. However, there's times when they come in really handy. So now let's put them together. We'll start with the cover. We need to assemble the pressure regulator. Also information in the manual as far as the different styles of pressure regulators and what covers they'll work in. Always make sure everything's super clean. We're just going to go ahead and start with some lubrication. Because you can't have too much lubrication. So I'll try to keep talking and entertaining you. Otherwise, I wouldn't want my video to be boring. So we got some pieces to put together. I'm going to note as I go. This is the pressure regulator spring that came with the manual valve body that I'm installing. We'll talk about and criticize that valve body when I get to it. It's an old version. with some, again, antiquated technology. Seems to fit in here pretty well. So same deal with the, oh, we're not ready for that yet. I was going to lube it up, but we're not ready. So we start with this aluminum plug. Goes in the end of the pressure regulator bore. You can always tell where it was because the pin that's going to hold this in has been riding there for years. I mean, you don't have to be like me and be completely obsessive about lining it up, but that pushes right in. The pin, you got to be careful because it's going to want to fall out. I put a little petroleum jelly on it or assembly lube, but that's not going to hold it in for very long, so you just have to be aware it's going to want to fall out. To help combat it, I go ahead and tap the aluminum plug right down against it. I've got a little bit of stuff on it, and I'm aware that at any point it could fall out before I put the two pump halves together. So now we got the plug in the end of the bore. You have to stand up every now and then. Try not to bug you. So we have a pressure regulator valve. The spring seat, you can put it on now, you can put it on afterwards. It will go on afterwards. If there were horseshoe shims under the stock spring, the new spring does not require any horseshoe shims. It will be under, this glove is bugging me. It will be under the spring seat, increasing the pressure of the spring by shimming it up. The new spring does not require that. So let's just drop the valve in. Forgot I'm probably blocking you, so that's down in its hole. Now we need the spring on its seat. Normally I would be using my little fork on the bench, but because I don't have a stator tube sticking out bothering me, I can now put this flat so the pin should stay in. I can go right flat down there. Nothing's going to stop me from assembling it. Kind of handy that the stator tube's missing. Now you got the boost valve. They boost pressure for reverse. Here I go blocking you again. This wants to fall apart when you put it in there, so I go ahead and put a little good old petroleum jelly on that, put it in its bore. So now it's less likely to fall out. Smear a little on there. Now you have to get this in and get a snap ring in the groove. My internet friend, David Nod, who builds tools, someday I need to do a video on just all the tools he's made me. He recently sent me some more installers, but he made this piece of flat bar bent up with a bolt on it. It's cut down on the end. It fits right here. You go ahead and just shove this in its hole. I could back the bolt all the way out, but I don't want to. Slide it off the edge of the bench so I can work on it. And the spring pressure isn't too much. You can do it by hand. You could use a wrench. I guess I could put a little wheel on here. That might be an improvement, but we're just going to go in past the snap ring groove. And there's lots of people, he showed this tool on the transmission forums, like, well, I've always used a screwdriver and I've only lost one eye doing it. Why do you need a tool? Sound like Kenny Wallace when he makes fun of people. I can answer the phone. I can do anything. I've done it this way forever. Always wish there was a better way. I started using a small valve spring compressor that I found for like a Briggs & Stratton. This is better. Now the snap ring. What I like about this tool is this snap ring will snap over the 3/8 bolt. It's like, oh, you forgot the snap ring. How are you going to get it in there? Well, it pushes right over, but the snap ring has a flat side and a round side. I read somewhere, and it makes sense, the flat side goes facing you, which is kind of rare for a snap ring, but in this case, that's the way it goes. So I push it right over the bolt. I actually slide this whole rig to one side to give me more room. Put the snap ring into my pliers. Make sure I'm engaged. Move that over a little bit. Shove it right up in there. Make sure we're connected. Wasn't that easier? So, Naughty Dave on YouTube. Man's a genius. Again, I worked on transmissions for 40 years or more before I never took the time to stop and make tools. I always just, you know, did it the hard way. And with a stock spring, it's not so bad. When you start getting higher pressure springs that are, of course, stiffer, it makes it more difficult. So now, just triple checking, make sure our pin is in its little home. It is. You saw me push it in a little more, though. Now the back side, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple things. I'm going to fill the grooves with petroleum jelly because I want to stick my Teflon seal, scarf cut, in the grooves. So when I drop it in, they slide right inside the forward drum. And air checking will be difficult because they're still stuck, but after a few applications of air, they'll loosen up. I get kind of carried away. Once they've taken their size, like if you were to pull this out after it's been in use, it'd probably stay the right shape. But then I smeared some up where the selective thrust wash is going to go. We're going to glue that on first. So that's stuck there. I put a little lube on the bushing. You probably saw that. The only bushing that's left for the input shaft to ride on other than the pilot bearing. Now we got two brand new scarf cut Teflon seals. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it's easy to put the outer one on first and then go for the inner. Doesn't really matter. Let's just go all the way. Well, now we've lost it down in the middle. And you gotta make sure your scarf goes the right way. You'll know when it's wrong, and that's wrong. Don't mind me while I fix it. There we go. Just had to line up, you know, this scarf this way, and one way is right and one way is wrong. And they usually sit in the package in the wrong way, so they kind of train that direction. We'll do this one this direction. Again, it wants to drop to the wrong side, but that time we got it right, I betcha. Rub the old lube around there. And the back half, which is called the cover, is now ready for assembly. Just double checking everything. That's good. Okay. Wipe off my hands, move to phase 2. All right, working on the pump body. Got a brand new, made in America, Durabond bushing. Most of the time, I don't put anything on it. In this case, it would be cylindrical bonding, high strength retaining compound, Loctite RC680. I've had this bottle forever. It just keeps on giving. I'm just gonna put a little bit of stuff on it. I don't know if there's extra forces with the pump drive and the clutch moving, etc. So just for peace of mind, just gonna wipe a little bit on there. If I was building you a race transmission, I'd probably do the same thing. Stock builds, probably don't. I don't. Either way, like I said, I've never had a pump bushing spin, but I know in this case, there are other forces involved. So I like to put it in from this side, and we're going to put it flush with the opening using my arbor press. Put that right there, just an aluminum driver. Kind of line her up. I love this thing, no more hammering, which works. Oh. I upset the apple cat. It's just so smooth and flawless. We'll go all the way back So that's installed. Make sure there's no retaining compound that's going to stick the pump gears shut. You know what I mean? We really don't want that. So remove any trace of that. Now we need a seal. You can see I've already painted the cover. In this case, if there was a spring showing in here, you've seen me a million times, I would pack that cavity with Vaseline or assembly lube. In this case, there is not. But for the same reasons, you know I'm anti-sealer of most any kind. Ugh. That's tight, there we go. But this old bottle of aviation former gasket, it's black ugly stuff, but it does do a good job. So same deal, I'm just gonna put a little on the OD of the seal. That red stuff does a pretty good job of sticking on there, but this brush is in tough shape there. Again, I don't want to make a mess, but got to get all the way around. With 360. Patience with my bottle. Now we'll set that right there. Oh, you got upstairs stuff. You can make a wicked mess if you wanted to. If I wipe it off here, I'll spend less time wiping it off my driver. It's gonna fit. Yep. Sometimes I take the handle off, but this is a come out just a little. Just like that. Hope you're still with me. So now we have a bushing and a seal. Now we'll apply a little bit of Vaseline just to the seal. We don't want to start it up dry. In this case, we have a pump drive running off the fingers of the 3-finger clutch. Probably wobbling away, who knows? There's that. What I'm doing is aligning the passages. There's a lot of passages in the bottom of the pump that transfer into the case. I just go ahead and put them at 6 o'clock. And I'll show you why in a second. A little bit of lube in there for the pump gears. Make sure they're clean. I like to put them back in the direction they came out. They will run either way. The dogs always want to be away from the converter. If we don't have a converter, but you know what I'm saying. That's the direction they go. You can already see it pumping. So that's good. Also, this is going to sit around most likely. So this is just 336. I'm just going to wipe a little around. Because somehow this transmission sat around and externally started to rust, but internally it did not. Now, like I say, my passages are down. Same with this. One last chance to make sure my pin is still in there. I know my passages go down. Normally I would be the stator tube would be down. I have to pick the body up, but I don't have a stator tube to bother me any. I can just go ahead and put my bolts in. The 3 different length bolts. You got the longest one goes here. You have 2 shorter ones, 2 medium length ones, I should say, and 2 short ones. When I'm picking it up, I leave this one out and I eyeball. If this one lines up, the other 4 will line up as well. I'm just gonna make them finger tight, so we got a lot of alignment to do. Not only do we put a band around the outside, it's this rocking that will mess you up when you go to put the pump bolts in. So we need to center that as well. So we'll start with my old faithful, nothing but hose clamps hooked together. See which way I got it cranked out. Put that around there. And we'll start to snug it up. But before we get it too tight, you can use bolts. You can align it like this. Never hurts to put some bolts in. Hang on 1 second. All right, we'll just drop a bolt in every pump hole, except for one. And we can see how close we are. This pays dividends when you go to, especially if you're doing an aftermarket bell housing with the long bolts. In this case, I have a big adapter with really long bolts. I just want to make sure that they're not hitting the shoulder of the bolt. That's not bad. Now you can just eyeball it. Make sure you're happy with it. And in the end, it'll go smoother, I promise. Now I got to get something to tighten the pump bolts with. Be right back. Okay, the pump bolts are tight. Magic of television. You never saw me do it, but I did. Had a couple other things to do, so it's been a couple minutes. Now we're aligned this way. The bolt holes are aligned. I was a long time wondering why I was fighting with the pump bolts, putting on an SF5 bell house, when I realized I really needed to do a little more alignment, like I mentioned. Now we need an O-ring. We're getting there though. This goes on dry at first, white stripe out. Make sure it's not twisted. And believe it or not, hey look, more lube. Let's go all the way around. You don't want to tear it going in, and you want it to fall right in. Not having a stator tube as a handle, it's going to make putting it in the transmission interesting. It's my, you don't realize how handy it is until it's not there. Not exactly sure how I'm going to do it, to be honest with you. Okay, that's all the way around. I'm going to put it face down for a second. I don't like to have too much on my gasket surface. A little bit's not going to hurt anything, but same goes for the bolt holes. All right, how am I going to get that in there? This is live problem solving. The gasket. ATI sells these in different thicknesses, but this is a stock one. It says 3-speed right there. That's going to go at 12 o'clock, so it makes it easy. You're not flipping around 14 times trying to figure out which way it goes. So I guess I'm just going to hold the sides, and when it gets close, let go and pound her in. One thing I didn't do, which is a lot easier here, is I have torque converter snout I cut off, put a piece of tubing on. I can run it down over the stator tube and make sure the pump turns. In this case, I'm looking right at the gears. So So we're good there. Let's drop her in. Make sure everything's still in place. Not too bad, we're not all the way down yet. At this point, you can see once again, you can walk it either way, so if you want to split the difference there. I hear the school bus, I got to go talk to my son for a second. He's home. I'm going to put just a couple bolts in it. I'm going to put a bolt in every hole and just tighten a couple and get the pump down where it belongs. Double check the end play. And then we have a big aluminum adapter that has to go on with really long bolts. So stand by. All right, I got bolts stuck in every hole except for two. I'm going to put pump washer bolts. Pump washers on the bolts. I don't want to scratch my black paint because if I was just putting this pump in the normal transmission, the paint kind of acts as an extra seal. When it heats up and cools down, the pump bolt washers stick right on there. So just kind of ease the pump in gently. You can tap on it, accomplish the same thing. I've already centered it side to side. Just go really easy. Go down, go down. Okay. Not going to get carried away tightening it because we have this giant aluminum adapter to put on there. Let me show it to you. I spent some time cleaning it up, and I have also determined, these are the bolts. I may pause and get flange bolts because you can put a washer, a sealing washer on that flat washer, but what seals the oil to go onto the washer and out around the head? So you're not really sealing anything. That should be a flange bolt, or goop it with silicone. I really don't want to do that. I don't know if it ever leaks. I don't think it was ever run. Also determined, this is the face that's going to sit on the pump, that the AT&T gasket fits. This has a lip around it. That gasket fits perfect. So there was no seal against here when I took it apart. It's not cut for O-rings. So I think that'll be a good addition. But this requires that ATI part number is ATI 200044G. Bell gasket, 350, 400. So take that off for now. This has the bearing retainer bolts on here, but before it does, there's a bearing with two snap rings, a snap ring on either side. When I took it apart, one of the snap rings was off and the bearing had moved, so got to spend a little time. I assume it all fits, and for whatever reason, it moved. This cavity has a drain hole right there, so if it was ever peeing oil out of there, you know something in here is leaking. That's just the way it is. This had several coats of paint on it, so it took quite a while to get it to the point where the paint's out of where the sealing washers go. And looking toward the future, after we do the valve body, etc., everything down here, the upper bolts where the bell housing's going to bolt on are 7/16. They'll probably go through the existing threaded holes in the bell housing from the inside. The 1/2-inch ones, gonna have to drill the threads out of the bell housing because they go in this way. Normally your transmission would bolt up this way. So that is future problem. So we've got the pump in. Next we got to do everything down here, and due to the length of this video already, we'll discuss the manual valve body that I chose, only because I got a deal on it. It's antiquated, it's kind of scary. But that's next. So thanks for watching, and catch you soon.